Okay, so I've had a few questions about the crimp-on hoses and the ends that I use. I use nothing but Fragola. I don't know that they're the best, but they work for me. I don't have any problems. They're made in the United States or Britain. It's not Chinesium. And so the ends that I like to use are for fuel and oil and critical fluids. I like to use the crimp-on fittings, and from Fragola, this is what a crimp-on fitting looks like. This sleeve screws onto the fitting, and then you go to the crimper and you crush this down, and it locks the hose onto this barbed piece of the fitting. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through real quick of what's involved in making one of these fittings, and so you have an idea. It's not difficult. In fact, the crimp-on ones are probably easier than the regular ones. The negative side of the crimp-on ones is the expense of the crimping tool and all the dies. That stuff's not cheap. As you can see, I've got my Fragola hose. This is Fragola Race Right lightweight PTFE hose. It's good for any sort of automotive fluid. It works fine with methanol, even nitromethane. It's fine. I'm going to make a hose now. This hose is going to be the one that supplies the back of the valve from the fuel cell to the supply, to the hard line that supplies the motor. And I've pre-measured it, and I know it needs to be 16 inches long. So I'll just show you the method that I use when I'm making these lines. And this is certainly not the only way to do it, but it's the way I do it. So what I'll do is I'll mark the hose at 16 inches, and then I wrap the hose. This is Tessa tape. It's like a fabric, almost like a cotton tape. It's really sticky, and it doesn't fray. So what I'll do is I'll apply the tape. Let me just bring this hose over a little closer so you can see what I'm doing here. So I made a little mark right here on the hose where I'm going to cut it. So what I'll do is I'll put the tape halfway on each side of that mark, or maybe a little bit more than halfway towards the hose size that I'm going to cut. So then I'll just wrap the tape around, and this basically just keeps the outer jacket from fraying and causing a mess when you go to crimp it. So there. So that's where I'm going to cut this now. And I'll show you my cutters that I use. And again, this is not the only way. It's just the way I choose to do it. So these are the cutters that I'm going to use, and they're just a big, basically a big cable cutter. And they do a pretty good job. This cutter, I think, is from Vibrant. There's various ones out there. Does a pretty good job, especially on stainless hose and stuff. On this Race Right hose, it doesn't always cut all of this nylon fiber, so I sometimes have to go back and trim that with scissors, but that's okay. So basically what you want to do is you want to make sure that the hose is square in the cutter. And let's see if we can bring that a little bit more into the shot here. You want to make sure that the hose is perpendicular to the cutting blade. You don't want to cut this on an angle. And then when you cut it, you just want to make it kind of like one smooth motion, if possible. So here we go. And there it is. And like I said, those cutters don't always cut all the way through, so you can see I've got a little piece here that I need to trim with scissors, like that. Now, this is the result. You can see it's squashed, and it doesn't look very appetizing at all. So what I do at this point is I'll just take a pair of pliers and sort of unsquash it. And when you do that, you see that wire kind of pops out. So then I'll take a pair of dikes. Hope you can see that. So what I'll do then is I'll take a pair of dikes and I'll just trim that wire back a little bit. And this is not critical, so don't worry about exactly where it gets trimmed. And so there, now we've got a more or less round opening. You can see the PTFE liner. So now what I'll do is I like to slide the barrel, the sleeve for the crimp, over top of the hose at this point. So sometimes, it's a little snug, a little tight to get it on there, but this one looks like it's going to go without too much trouble. And you see I've got that now kind of right up at the end of the hose. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a big punch, this one right here, and I'll put a little bit of silicone spray on it. This is just, you can use whatever you like, WD-40 or even oil works. The lubricant isn't real critical. And I'm going to stick that in here so that I can kind of stretch that out. I can stretch that out and make it nice and round. And there, as you can see. Now, this next part is really straightforward. All you do now is slide, and I'll put a little bit of lubricant on here as well. It's good to, especially those threads. It'll help the sleeve get started. You don't want to cross thread that sleeve. So I'll just basically get the hose end started, push it on like that, and then thread the sleeve all the way up to the fitting. It's got a little bit of silicone, it's a little slippery, but there. So you can see the sleeve has been threaded on all the way up tight to the fitting, okay? So this now is ready to crimp. So we'll go over to the crimper and I'll show you that process. So this is my crimper. I got it from Fragola. It's made by Custom Crimp, and it is the basic model. It doesn't have the air over hydraulic foot pedal or anything. It's just got a basic hand pump, and it works great. I am going to add the air over hydraulic down the line, and I'll just show you, pardon my reach here in front of the camera, but this is what the crimps look like. So this particular one I think is for a larger size hose. I think this is maybe a dash 16 or something hose. But anyway, that's what the crimps look like. They fit in this base. They just sit in there like that. And then what you do is you take your hose that you just made. Let me get you better in the shot here. Okay, this is what editing is for. So now what we do is we'll put our hose up through here, and we'll put the crimp half back in place and get it seated properly. You got to make sure that that is seated well. And then what you do is you take this ring, which is tapered, and it presses down on these crimps, and that's what crimps the sleeve. So you slide this over the top like that. There. So now what we'll do is basically just push the sleeve right down. There's a lip that it'll sit on. You'll reach a point where it won't go any farther. That's where it needs to be crimped. And then we put this piece in the crimper. And now we just pump the handle a bazillion times until we get a good crimp. And you can see that as this is coming down, what's going to happen here is this little micrometer is going to push this button and it's going to turn on that red light. And that's my indication that the crimp is finished. This is preset, actually right there. This is preset for each size of crimp. It does change with a different size sleeve, so you have to set that up. But when we get this crimped, then we'll pull it out and we'll verify that we have it crimped correctly. And we're almost there. There we have a light. So that's the crimp. And as you can see, let's get that die back in there. As you can see, this is the section that it crimped down on. Now, if you want to verify that you have this crimped correctly, we'll just grab a caliper and just check it. And do I have a caliper at the bench? Yes, I do. So it should be just over, let's put that into, yeah, just over 9/100ths of an inch. So we're right within spec there. Whoops, sorry, you can't see that, but there we go. So that is crimped correctly. So then we do the same thing on the other end. And then once both ends are on and crimped, we can, I run alcohol through them and blow them out with a air gun to make sure that we get any debris out of the hose. And then Fragola sells this pressure test kit where you put a plug in one end and this other plug with a Schrader valve in the other end. And I hit this with 150 psi of air, and I take it over and I dunk it in water and I make sure there's no leaks. So this is a really good way to just make double sure that all of your connections are good before you install them on the car. And then once I have this all done and the entire system's on the car, I'm also going to pressure test the entire system from the fuel cell at the back of the car all the way to the fuel rails at the front using these kinds of fittings. So I'll find any leaks long before I ever run actual fuel through the car. So that's basically it. I just wanted to give you a quick kind of update on, how those crimp connections were made. They work really well. I'm a big fan of them. As you can see, the connection still swivels. So, it's fully adjustable. I can make that go wherever I need to, and it's totally leak proof. So that's how you do a crimp-on style connector with Fragola parts and Race Right hose. Okay, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to pressure test these now. So I've got the ends plugged off, and so now I'm just going to put, this is about 130 psi air pressure. I'm just going to apply it right into the tube. So now this tube is under 130 psi of air. So now we're just going to go throw it in the sink and see if it leaks. And says no leaks, no air bubbles. Now if it leaked, I can just let a little bit of air out here. You'll see how it'll bubble. Assuming I can get my thumbnail on the... No, I can't. There, you could hear the air come out of it. So now we've got a fully tested, let's dry it off here. We've got a fully tested and ready to install hose fitting. And I don't have to worry about this thing, you know, leaking after I get it installed in the car. The crimps have been tested, everything's good, and we should be in business. So that's how I make my hoses. I've done them all that way. I've tested every single one. I've cleaned every single one out. I've got a few more to make, but I just wanted to kind of give you an update on how I build hoses. Maybe not the right way, maybe certainly not the only way, but that's my way. And it works good for me, and I think it'll work for you too. By the way, I wanted to show you something else. If you're doing AN fittings, you really need one of these AN jaws. They allow you to mount your fittings and stuff in a vise and hold on to it, you know, while you're working on it. I'm just going to stick you on a tripod here, and I'll just kind of show you the way I use this. And again, you might have different uses, but this is the way I do it. I'll bring you back in the shot. So I'm going to take these ends off now. So rather than taking 2 wrenches, I just stick one end in the vise. Like that. These jaws are aluminum, so they don't scratch or mar up the fitting at all. And then I'll just take my AN wrench, loosen it. And you should always use AN wrenches when you're working with AN fittings. It just keeps them from getting scratched up and makes them, you know, look good and last longer, and it's just the right way to do it. So invest in some AN wrenches. But yeah, this works good for other kinds of fittings as well. You don't use this so much on the compression style fittings, but on the other ones, like on the crimp-on fittings, but on the other ones, I use it quite a bit on other fittings and stuff. And like you can hold the fitting and push the hose in at the same time and that sort of stuff. So yeah, works good, and I like to use it. So there we are. That's it.